The rhythmic hum of the Helios Deep Space Station's life support systems was interrupted by an alert unlike anything Commander Sarah Chen had heard in her 15 years of service. The sound pierced through the quiet of the observation deck, where she had been reviewing maintenance logs for the station's outer ring. "Commander," Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice crackled through her comm unit. "We're picking up something on the long-range scanners. Well, you need to see this." Chen was already moving, her feet automatically adjusting to the station's rotating gravity as she made her way to the command center. The massive circular room was alive with activity, screens flickering with data streams she didn't recognize. "Report," she ordered, leaning over Rodriguez's station. The lieutenant's dark eyes were fixed on a pulsing signal that seemed to shimmer across his holographic display. "It started about 10 minutes ago, Commander. At first, we thought it was just background radiation, but he manipulated the controls, and a haunting sequence of crystalline tones filled the room. It's definitely artificial, and it's not matching any known human communication protocols." Chen felt her pulse quicken. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had theorized about first contact happening in many ways. Nobody had expected it to come as a distress call. "Translation Matrix is working on it now," Senior Communications Officer Peril announced from her station. "The signal structure is unlike anything in our database, but there are clear mathematical patterns suggesting intelligence." The room fell silent as fragments of translated text began appearing on the main screen. What emerged made Chen's breath catch in her throat. "Orgent. Mining colony Sigid-May-EX. Structural COLAPSA. 147 Souls TRAPPD. Environment critical. Any species capable of surviving 2.1G environment. Please respond." "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," Rodriguez noted, his fingers dancing across his console. "The signal's coming from the Carina sector, about 12 light-years out." Chen straightened, her mind racing through protocols that had only existed in theory until now. "Get me a direct link to Earth Command, and someone find out everything we know about the Carina sector." The next hour was a blur of activity. The translation matrix continued refining the alien transmission, revealing more details about the situation. The message originated from a species calling themselves the Etheri, crystalline beings who had mastered faster-than-light travel centuries ago, but had evolved in low-gravity environments. Their mining colony had suffered a catastrophic failure during the extraction of rare minerals, trapping nearly 150 colonists in conditions that would kill any rescue workers of their species within minutes. "Their physiology can't handle the strain," Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the station's xenobiologist, explained during the emergency briefing. "Based on the data they're transmitting, their bodies would literally shatter under that kind of gravitational pressure. But for us—" She paused, a slight smile crossing her face. "For humans, it's well within survivable limits." Chen studied the holographic projection of the mining facility schematics. The Etheri's architectural style was beautiful, all sweeping curves and crystalline structures that seemed to defy physics. But now those same elegant designs were turning into death traps as the planet's gravity pulled them apart. "Earth Command has authorized Operation Firsthand," she announced to her assembled senior staff. "The Etheri may be more technologically advanced than us, but we have something they don't. Bodies evolved to survive on a world that would crush them. We're going to show them why coming from a death world isn't always a curse." She turned to face the main viewport, where the stars stretched out before them like scattered diamonds. "The Crisis Response Unit vessel Prometheus is already being prepped for launch. They'll be here in 6 hours. Until then, we need to learn everything we can about what we're dealing with." As her team dispersed to their stations, Chen found herself staring at the continuous stream of Etheri distress signals. Humanity had long wondered what their first contact with alien life would be like. Would they be seen as primitives, threats, or equals? Instead, fate had given them a chance to be something else entirely. Saviors. "Commander," Rodriguez called out, his voice tight with urgency. "We're getting new telemetry from the colony. The structural integrity is failing faster than they predicted. The Aetheri are saying we have less than 30 hours before total collapse." Chen nodded, her jaw set with determination. "Then we better make every minute count. Send word to the Prometheus to push their engines to the limit. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can do." As she issued orders to her crew, Chen couldn't help but feel the weight of history pressing down on them all. Their response to this crisis wouldn't just determine the fate of 147 alien lives. It would shape humanity's first steps onto the galactic stage. And she was determined to make those steps count. Captain Maya Patel stood in the Prometheus's cargo bay, watching her crew load the last of the specialized rescue equipment. The massive ship had been designed for exactly this kind of mission, though everyone had assumed they'd be rescuing human colonists, not crystalline aliens. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Final equipment check complete, Captain," reported Chief Engineer David Torres, his dark features illuminated by the holographic checklist floating before him. "We've modified the plasma cutters to work with the Aetheri's crystalline architecture. Should slice through their materials without causing structural resonance." Maya nodded, her eyes scanning the assembled rescue team. 20 of Earth's finest, miners, engineers, combat medics, and structural specialists. Each one had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their ability to operate in extreme conditions. Many, like herself, had grown up in high-gravity colonies, their bodies naturally adapted to pressures that would crush their new alien allies. "Listen up," she called out, her voice carrying across the bay. "In about 4 hours, we're going to attempt something unprecedented. The Aetheri are centuries ahead of us in many ways, but they evolved in paradise. We evolved in hell." She gestured to the screen showing their destination. "That mining colony is sitting at 2.1 times Earth gravity. For them, it's a death sentence. For us, it's Tuesday." A few chuckles rippled through the crew. Dark humor was a survival trait in their line of work. Commander Chen from Helios Station has been coordinating with the Aetheri leadership. They've provided detailed schematics of the facility, but be prepared for surprises. The structural damage is getting worse by the minute. Dr. Sarah Jung, the team's xenobiologist, stepped forward. "I've analyzed the Aetheri biological data. Their crystalline cellular structure is beautiful but fragile under pressure. They literally can't comprehend how our bodies can function in these conditions, which means we're not just rescuing them. We're rewriting their understanding of what's possible." The ship's AI, interrupted with its melodic voice. "Captain, new data packet from Helios Station. The Aetheri have managed to establish limited communication with some of the trapped colonists. They're gathered in 3 main groups across 2 levels of the facility. Environmental systems are failing systematically." Maya activated the main display, showing the colony's layout. "Right, here's how we'll play this. Torres, your engineering team will focus on stabilizing the critical support structures. Lieutenant Hassan, your group will handle the actual extractions. Dr. Zhang, you'll coordinate with the Aetheri medical team on the surface. We need to know exactly how to handle their bodies without causing additional trauma." She paused, studying the determined faces before her. "The Aetheri are calling us Deathworlders. They say it with fear and a little pity. By the time we're done, they'll say it with respect." "Captain," Araya chimed in again, "I've completed analysis of the colony's geological data. The planet's tectonic activity is increasing. At current rates, we have approximately 22 hours before total structural failure." "Then we do this in 20, Maya replied, her voice steely with determination. "Suit up. Final equipment checks in 30 minutes. Dismissed." As her crew dispersed, Maya found herself staring at the image of the Aetheri colony. Its spiraling crystalline towers would have been breathtaking if they weren't slowly crumbling. The Aetheri had built their facility to be beautiful. Humans had built the Prometheus to endure. Today, They would show the galaxy which approach worked better when disaster struck. "RIA, give me a direct line to the HFY coordination team," she ordered, walking toward the bridge. "Let's make sure they understand exactly what we're capable of and what we'll need from them." The next hour was spent in detailed planning with the alien rescue coordinators. The HFY's initial skepticism about human capabilities quickly gave way to desperate hope as Maya explained how her team would operate. Their crystalline faces, translucent and geometric, showed what Dr. Zhang identified as expressions of disbelief when Maya described the weights her crew could lift, the pressures they could endure. "Your species willingly sends its people into such conditions?" the HFY coordinator asked, their crystalline form shimmering with what the translation matrix identified as concern. "We don't just send them," Maya replied, allowing herself a small smile. "We train for them. We prepare for them. Where you see impossible conditions, we see Tuesday. That's why we're here." As the Prometheus streaked through space toward the crisis, Maya felt the weight of the moment. Humanity had dreamed of proving itself to the galaxy. They'd imagined great battles or technological achievements. Instead, they would make their mark by doing what humans did best, rushing in to help when everyone else said it couldn't be done. "All hands, prepare for final approach," Araya announced. "We are 17 minutes from the HFY colony. Rescue operations will commence in 22 minutes. Maya squared her shoulders and headed for the equipment bay. It was time to show the galaxy what Deathworlders could do. The first step onto the colony's landing pad felt like stepping into an alien artwork. Crystalline structures rose around them, their once pristine surfaces now webbed with fractures. Maya led her team forward, their heavy-duty environmental suits barely registering the increased gravity that had already claimed several HFY rescue workers. Readings confirmed 2.1 G and rising. Lieutenant Hassan reported, his suit's sensors streaming data to their shared display. Atmospheric pressure is 30% above Earth standard, temperature holding at 42 Celsius. The HFY coordinator, Nexus 7, hovered near the entrance in a specialized containment field that protected their crystalline form from the crushing gravity. Their faceted surface rippled with patterns that the translation matrix interpreted as a mix of hope and concern. "The nearest group of survivors is gathered in Chamber K-17, approximately 300 meters below." Nexus 7's translated voice echoed in their helmets. "But the main access routes have collapsed. We lost 3 rescue teams trying to find an alternate path." Maya nodded, studying the holographic map projected inside her visor. "Torres, take your team and set up a forward base here. Hassan, Zhang, you're with me. We're going to show our new friends how humans handle impossible paths." The interior of the facility was a maze of crystalline corridors, their surfaces refracting the team's lights in dazzling patterns. Under other circumstances, it would have been beautiful. Now, the creaking and groaning of stressed materials created an ominous symphony around them. Structural integrity at 27% and declining. Araya reported through their comms, detecting significant movement in the lower support pillars. Maya led her team through the twisting passages, their heavy boots leaving marks on surfaces that had never been meant to bear such weight. The HFY's architectural style, all smooth curves and delicate spans, had been designed for a world with 1/3 Earth's gravity. Under these conditions, their elegant design choices were becoming death traps. "Contact," Hassan called out. "I'm picking up crystalline resonance patterns ahead, similar to the HFY life signs we were briefed on." They rounded a corner and found their path blocked by a massive crystalline beam that had sheared away from the ceiling. Beyond it, they could hear the distinct harmonic tones of distressed HFY. "Taurus," Maya called over the comm. "We've got our first obstacle. Sending you the structural scan now." "Received," the engineer replied. "That beam is load-bearing, Captain. Remove it wrong, and you'll bring down half the level." Maya studied the obstacle, her mind racing through options. The HFY would have needed heavy machinery to move such a mass. But they weren't Aetheri. Hassan, Zhang, brace positions, she ordered, moving to one end of the beam. On my mark, we lift and pivot. Use the wall as a fulcrum point. The Aetheri observers watching through their suit cameras were silent as the three humans positioned themselves. When Maya gave the signal, they moved in perfect coordination. Muscles enhanced by lives spent in high gravity strained against the mass. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a grinding sound that echoed through the corridor, the beam began to move. Impossible. Nexus 7's translated voice whispered in their comms. The mass. The pressure. For us, Maya grunted as they carefully pivoted the beam. This is just another day at the office. With the path cleared, they found the first group of survivors. 15 Aetheri huddled in what had once been a research laboratory, their crystalline forms dulled by stress and fear. Each was encased in a personal containment field that was rapidly failing under the increasing pressure. Dr. Zhang stepped forward, her movements careful despite the urgency. I'm reading critical stress patterns in their cellular structures. We need to get them out now. Maya activated their emergency teleport beacons, short-range devices that could transport the Aetheri directly to the medical bay of the Prometheus. The survivors vanished in flashes of light, their harmonic tones shifting to what the translation matrix identified as expressions of relief and disbelief. First group secured, Maya reported to both her ship and the Aetheri coordinators. Moving to the second location, she checked the structural integrity readings. And we better move fast. This whole place is coming down around us. As they pressed deeper into the facility, Maya couldn't help but reflect on the moment's significance. Humanity had just proved they could do what the Aetheri's advanced technology couldn't. Not through superior gadgets or knowledge, but through the simple fact that their bodies had been forged in the crushing embrace of a world that never meant them to survive. The facility groaned around them, a reminder that their job was far from over. But they had made their point. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the best allies were the ones who called Deathworlders home. The second group of survivors had been harder to reach. 2 hours of careful navigation through increasingly unstable corridors had tested even the humans' enhanced endurance. Maya's team had just secured the last of them when Aria's voice cut through their comms with unusual urgency. Captain, critical alert. Detecting massive tectonic movement underneath the facility. Structural integrity dropping rapidly. Taurus's voice followed immediately. Captain, the support pillars are failing faster than we predicted. We got maybe 20 minutes before total collapse, and we still haven't reached the third group. Maya checked her display. The final group of survivors, 32 Aetheri researchers, was trapped in the facility's deepest level, now cut off by multiple cave-ins. The original route was completely blocked, and their backup path had just been compromised by the new seismic activity. How many are still down there? Nexus 7 asked, their crystalline voice vibrating with what the translation matrix identified as desperate concern. 32, Maya replied, already moving. Hassan, Zhang, fall back to the surface with the injured. Taurus, I need options. The engineer's response was grim. The only path left would take us through the primary coolant system. The temperatures there are approaching 60 Celsius, and the radiation levels would kill any Aetheri instantly, Zhang finished. But we could survive it. Barely. Maya studied the schematics, noting how the coolant system ran parallel to their target. The Aetheri had designed it as a completely sealed system, never expecting anyone would need to use it as an access route. But they had also never expected humans. Taurus, meet me at Junction B15 with cutting equipment. We're going to make our own path. The next 10 minutes were a blur of calculated risks. Taurus's team cut through the coolant system's outer shell, while Maya's suit sensors screamed warnings about the rising temperature and radiation levels. The Aetheri coordinators watched in horror as the humans deliberately breached systems that their safety protocols listed as absolutely forbidden to approach. The heat will kill you, Nexus 7 protested, even if you survive the radiation. "We've trained for worse." Maya cut them off, checking her suit's integrity. "Your people designed this facility to be perfectly safe. We designed ourselves to survive when safety fails." The makeshift path through the coolant system was a nightmare of tight spaces and searing heat. Even through their suits, the team could feel the temperature rising. But they pressed on, using the coolant pipes as guidance to the lowest level. They found the final group of survivors in what had once been a central research hub. The Aetheri were huddled together, their containment fields flickering as the facility's power fluctuated. The sight of humans emerging from a supposedly deadly coolant system caused their crystalline forms to pulse with patterns that the translation matrix couldn't even interpret. "The heat will kill you," Nexus 7 protested, "even if you survive the radiation." "We've trained for worse." Maya cut them off, checking her suit's integrity. "Your people designed this facility to be perfectly safe. We designed ourselves to survive when safety fails." The makeshift path through the coolant system was a nightmare of tight spaces and searing heat. Even through their suits, the team could feel the temperature rising. But they pressed on, using the coolant pipes as guidance to the lowest level. They found the final group of survivors in what had once been a central research hub. The Aetheri were huddled together, their containment fields flickering as the facility's power fluctuated. The sight of humans emerging from a supposedly deadly coolant system caused their crystalline forms to pulse with patterns that the translation matrix couldn't even interpret. "Impossible," one of them managed to transmit. "You came through there." Questions later, Maya ordered, setting up the emergency teleport beacons. "Right now, we're getting you out of here." The evacuation was almost complete when the facility gave its final warning. A deep rumble shook the entire structure, and Araya's voice carried pure alarm. "Critical failure imminent. Complete structural collapse in 90 seconds." Maya looked at the remaining survivors, 5 Aetheri whose containment fields were too weak to risk teleportation. The safe play would be to evacuate immediately. The human play. "Torres, give me your spare power cell," she ordered, already removing her own. Working quickly, she jury-rigged the cells to the failing containment fields, boosting their strength just enough for one final teleport. "Captain," Hassan's voice crackled through the comm, "you won't have enough power to teleport yourself out." "Then I'll do it the human way," Maya replied, activating the emergency beacons. The last Aetheri vanished in flashes of light, leaving her alone in the crumbling facility. "I'll run." What followed would become legend in both human and Aetheri space. Maya sprinted through collapsing corridors, her muscles straining against the crushing gravity, using her suit's failing power to clear obstacles. The Aetheri watched through her helmet cam as she raced death itself, their crystalline forms resonating with what could only be described as awe. She burst from the facility's entrance, just as the final collapse began, the beautiful crystalline structure falling in on itself with a sound like 1,000 breaking mirrors. The Prometheus's medical bay was already full of rescued Aetheri, their faceted forms glowing with life and disbelief at their survival. Standing at the edge of the destruction, Maya opened a channel to all listeners. Final count confirmed. All survivors retrieved. 0 casualties. The silence that followed was broken by a sound never before heard in human space, the harmonic resonance of hundreds of Aetheri singing in unison, their crystalline bodies glowing with patterns that needed no translation to understand. Gratitude, respect, and something else. Recognition that the galaxy had just changed forever. 1 month after the rescue at Sigma EX, the Helios Deep space station hosted an unprecedented gathering. The station's main conference chamber, usually reserved for human diplomatic functions, sparkled with the presence of dozens of Aetheri dignitaries, their crystalline forms casting rainbow patterns across the walls. Commander Chen stood at the podium, looking out over an audience that represented both species. Captain Maya Patil and her rescue team sat in the front row, their dress uniforms adorned with newly created medals, the first ever jointly designed by humans and Aetheri artisans. "Today marks not just a celebration of lives saved," Chen began, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. But the beginning of a partnership none of us could have imagined 6 weeks ago. The main display activated, showing footage from the rescue. The HFY representatives' forms pulsed with complex patterns as they watched humans moving through conditions their species had long considered impossible to survive. What had once seemed like a cruel joke of evolution, humanity's development on a high-gravity death world, had proved to be an unexpected gift to the galaxy. Nexus 7 floated forward, their crystalline structure now bearing the markings of a high governmental position. When we first encountered humans, they began, their translated voice resonating through the chamber. We saw them as primitive beings cursed by their harsh world. We could not have been more wrong. The HFY leader's form shifted to display what the assembled humans now recognized as their species' equivalent of profound respect. You turned what we saw as weakness into strength. Where we saw impossible conditions, you saw Tuesday. A ripple of appreciative laughter ran through the human portion of the audience. The phrase had become something of a catchphrase among both species since the rescue. This is why, Nexus 7 continued, the HFY Confederation formally proposes the establishment of the Interstellar Crisis Response Corps, a joint operation combining our technological expertise with humanity's unique biological capabilities. The announcement sent a wave of excited murmurs through the chamber. Maya felt her chest tighten with pride as Nexus 7 outlined the proposal. The HFY would provide their advanced ships and scanning technology, while humans would form the core of the response teams. Together, they would create something unprecedented in the galaxy, a rescue service capable of operating in conditions that would kill most spacefaring species. We have already identified 17 potential crisis zones across known space, Nexus 7 explained, their form glowing brighter with enthusiasm. Places where other species' colonies and operations are at risk, but where conditions prevent effective rescue operations. Places where, until now, we could only watch helplessly as disasters unfolded. Commander Chen stepped forward again. Earth Command has already approved the proposal. The first joint training exercises will begin next month. Captain Patul will oversee the program's development. Maya stood, acknowledging the announcement with a nod. She caught sight of her team members scattered throughout the audience. Taurus, Hassan, Zhang, and all the others who had proved that being from a death world wasn't a disadvantage, but a responsibility. But perhaps most importantly, Chen continued, this partnership has taught both our species a valuable lesson. The galaxy is vast and full of challenges no single species can overcome alone. Our differences, the very things that might seem to divide us, can become our greatest strengths when we work together. The ceremony concluded with a gesture that would have been impossible a month ago. The HFY representatives deliberately deactivated their personal gravity fields, allowing themselves to experience the station's Earth-normal gravity for a brief moment. It was uncomfortable for them, but the symbolic importance was clear. They were acknowledging that what humans considered normal was itself extraordinary. Later, at the reception, Maya found herself standing with Nexus 7 near one of the station's viewport windows. The stars stretched out before them, each one potentially holding new challenges, new civilizations to meet, new lives to save. You know, Maya said, watching the light play through her companion's crystalline form, when humanity dreamed of reaching the stars, we always imagined we'd make our mark through great battles or technological breakthroughs. Nexus 7's form rippled with what she now recognized as amusement. Instead, you proved yourselves by running into danger to save strangers. It's what humans do, Maya replied with a smile. We're too stubborn to accept impossible situations, too determined to leave anyone behind, and just crazy enough to think we can make a difference. Perhaps, Nexus 7 observed, their form glowing with warm colors, that is exactly what the galaxy needed. A species crazy enough to call a death world home, and brave enough to use that heritage to help others. As the celebration continued around them, Maya watched the stars and thought about the future. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not through conquest or competition, but by doing what they had always done best, facing the impossible and treating it like just another Tuesday.